Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show and welcome to another Hog Hoops Report. That is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris. And Kevin, we have an SEC schedule. We've been watching as the non-con schedule for the Hogs has kind of put itself together. Dates here, where Arkansas is going to ultimately play. A lot of neutral site games, really exciting matchups there. We knew the opponents for the Hogs. Now we have it all in front of us where and when Arkansas is going to play these games.
Oh,
Highlights, and we'll go through the whole thing. But January 3rd, it begins at home, Tennessee. And then obviously everybody's going to go to January 31st, that home game against Kentucky as well. What were your immediate takeaways? Seeing the schedule, it pops up. What were your first thoughts kind of when it came across your desk there?
we know Joe Lenardi's most recent ESPN bracketology projects 14 of 16 SEC teams to make the dance again. And we know Arkansas's got back to back to back losing records in SEC play. Despite that, 2 of those 3 years they've advanced to a Sweet 16. So it tells you just how good this conference is, and it got even better last year. And it looks like it might be, and that's early, 14-team big dance league. So you can't look at the schedule and go, oh, well, this is easy. This makes sense, but I do think it's more manageable than previous schedules. For the second consecutive season, Arkansas will play 3 of its first 5 games on the road. So you're thinking, oh boy, that lines up maybe for another slow start in league play. Until Arkansas rewrites the chapter and proves it can win more than it loses coming out of the gates. We know last year the first 5 games, 3 on the road, 2 at home, and it still ended up 0-5. You didn't even win at home at that point. But I think the difference is this Arkansas team with the retention going into year 2 under Calipari, really with his feet settled in Fayetteville. You hear the confidence in his voice. I think it's why the non-conference was so put together the way it was, with a lot of tough challenges. I also like the way the non-conference, a lot of those big games, playing in December as a lead up to league play, so that you're not coming off 3 or 4 straight wins in December in games that are spaced out against cupcakes, and then you get shell shocked when you jump the league. So I think even the non-conference helps explain why I think the league play, despite how good this league's going to be, I think it lines up pretty good, despite playing 3 out of 5 on the road, Jacob, to open up SEC play. By the time you get to the midway point, you mentioned that Kentucky game, January 31st. That's the 9th game in league play at that point, and there's 18
Mhm.
games, so that's the halfway point. By then, you will have had 5 of those 9 games at home. So even though you play 3 of 5 on the road to start, you get 3 of the next 4 at home. And I think it's manageable. I tweeted this out a few days ago. I included this in other content that I've put out. I really think 7-2 is doable, viable, feasible, not a prediction. But how would that be for a program that's really fallen so far down every year and had to scrap their way back just to try to get close to 500? Haven't been able to do that again in 3 straight years. If you went something like 7-2, even 6-3, I think, obviously a little easier to get to than 7-2, but you'd take 5-4 at this point. You'd love to get to the
Mhm.
midway point with a winning record. So I think it lays out. I think the second half is tougher. You asked me what stands out. Obviously, the Kentucky game, that's the game of the year every year while Calipari is at Arkansas, and Kentucky's, both teams are in the SEC, going to play each other. It's a shame they're not home and away every year. Obviously, open up with Tennessee is big because of the success of that program. But you look down the stretch, the last 6 games is the toughest stretch, in my opinion.
Yep.
And you've got road games at Alabama and defending national champion Florida. And the Gators are going to be projected by many to repeat as national champions. They'll be a top 3 team nationally for sure, and probably most folks, if not everybody's pick to win the SEC.
Yeah, we talked a lot about last year, right? When we were painting the what at the time felt like a crazy hypothetical. How does this team get back in NCAA tournament play? To your point, after the 1-5 start, we talked a lot about, hey, where's the gauntlet? Where is the toughest stretched in the midst of this schedule, right? Where man, it is blow after blow after blow, and it was right in smack dab in the middle of the SEC slate for the Hogs a year ago. In a lot of ways, to your point, Arkansas's schedule shapes up in a way that they kind of avoided. I mean, I think if you're forced to pick it, it's that last 6 game stretch, like you said, right? But in theory, you would hope, right, you're playing your best basketball at that
Yeah.
point. And so I think it really is an interesting schedule in that capacity for Arkansas because there's not a 4-game stretch that you look at and say, man, that is really brutal. Every team you're going to play in this league, every road game you play is going to test you in a lot of different ways. But when you look down that stretch, there's not that 3 or 4 game spot where you say, man, Arkansas is really going to struggle or really going to have to be at its best. That's just going to kind of be what you have throughout the slate. I thought it was interesting from the standpoint every road game is going to be tough in college basketball, but there are some tough ones here in terms of the teams and the programs that Arkansas goes ahead and visits. And you go down the list and you got an at Auburn, you got an at Alabama, at Florida, right? And those 3 games are going to be, against 3 teams competing for the top of the conference. And those games are really, in a lot of ways, if Arkansas is, hey, we're going to compete for the SEC, you're looking at road games like that are potentially going to make or break the SEC record at the end of the season.
Yeah, and again, Alabama and Florida, those road games are in that back
Yeah.
6, the final third. But if you look at the first 3 games, I mentioned 3 of the first 5 are on the
Yep.
road, but you open with Tennessee, regular season Rick, man, and now Rick Barnes, he's got Tennessee to back-to-back Elite Eights
Yeah.
to add the icing to the cake of what had been strong regular seasons right there at the top of the league.
Yeah.
So you open at home there, but you're immediately on the road, Ole Miss. We know Ole Miss is coming off a Sweet 16. We know it's Chris Beard. We know the quality of that program now. And then you're on the road. You mentioned that Auburn road game. So the first 3 games
Mhm.
is a mini brutal stretch, if you want to
Yeah.
call it that. Again, I think that's manageable. I think Arkansas can emerge from that 2-1. If you go 3-0 there, look out because
Oh
the
boy.
rest you get a lot more home games following that up to get through the first half of league play. But again, there's like you said, there's not a night off.
Mhm.
The teams like LSU and South
Mhm.
Carolina that aren't projected to make the tournament again. What did Arkansas do on the road last year against those 2 teams? They lost both those
Yeah.
games. They were left out. So, again, this is a different Arkansas team. I love the retention. I love the recruiting. I like the front line. I like
Mhm.
the wings. I like the guards. Yes, there are some question marks, but I think Arkansas is a top of the league value coming into it. I project Arkansas when I do my SEC power rankings. I'm going to have Arkansas in the top 3. Certainly, Florida will be up there, but I think the team. It's the way the team's built. It's how they're escalating their non-conference as a lead up to
Yeah.
jump into league play. Just think a combination of things. It's not that you look again at the SEC and go, "Oh, this is just an easier league this year. It's an easier
Mhm.
path." It's a combination of things that make you feel better about Arkansas's ability to handle adversity. And for once, I mean, it's been a minute since Arkansas has come out of the gates. Whether you're looking at 3 games, 5 games, 6 games with a winning record, hell, you would have traded off for just a break even
Yeah.
somewhere in there. 0-5 last year that turned to 1-6.
Yeah.
Looked like even the NIT was going to be out of the grasp and that you were staying home after the SEC tournament. And my, how things changed.
Yeah, it's funny, you reminded me there. I think I said 1-5. I gave him more credit than I should have, right? With that start. It's a great point in terms of this team just needs to find a way to start a little bit faster in SEC play, obviously, right? A couple things to note. It would be nice if you remember Arkansas, a little bit of momentum through non-conference last year going into SEC play. And it's interesting that we get the inverse. Remember, they opened at Tennessee last year in what was just one of the ugliest basketball games we've ever seen, right? Where it was 40-point deficit, something like that, right? And it would be great for Arkansas maybe to get off to a good start there. You're talking about 5-6 game start, whatever it might be, sure. But I think it'll be really interesting the way they set the tone at home against Tennessee because those 2 road games coming up after that are going to be so tough. If I tell you, you got to take Kentucky off the table. When you look down this slate, give me a couple games you're saying these are the ones I'm most excited for as you look through the slate.
I really think the Florida game,
Yeah.
if Kentucky's won, that's 1A. And I'm going to say this. You're playing a brutal schedule. You're playing Houston in
Mhm.
non-conference. Some of the SEC teams you'll have already played. Kentucky. You're going to match up against some of the best teams in the country. But here is the defending national champ, the defending SEC tournament champion,
Yeah.
and it finished only a game behind Auburn for the regular season title last year and beat Auburn on its home court late in regular season. Right now, Florida and Todd Golden is the standard
Mhm.
until they're not. Now we'll see by the time they play in February, late February. I think maybe the last day of February, just how good this Florida team is. They got Boogie Fland also. How do
Yep.
you not get excited about that matchup against DJ Wagner and Darius Acuff Jr. and the core of guards that Arkansas is going to put on the court? Just for multiple reasons, I think that's you can make a case that's the most important game of the year, the most exciting game of the year, and it's a chance to really measure yourself as you get ready to shift into March in the postseason because it's February 28th. There's a lot of reason for me why that's just a mega matchup. I'm not saying anything that others aren't thinking of right now. It's no newsflash. So it's not one of those sneaky, sexy matchups. It's one of those that catches you, hits you square in the jaw. You're like, yeah, that's a big one on the schedule. And there's going to be a lot of big games because of how good the non-conference is as well. You throw in how difficult that is and what will be the best, then SEC, the best conference in college basketball, once again, at least expected to be. We'll see what plays out. But I could pick out 10 matchups through the course of this 31 game schedule, and they're the kind of matchups that are must see TV around college basketball.
Yeah, that one's going to be one. Obviously, everybody has their eye on, and again, when you play a slate like this, an SEC slate like this, they're going to be take your pick of prime time, really fun opportunities in terms of high ranked opponents. Last kind of thing before we hit a break here. I know we've talked about this a lot, but we've talked about the non conference schedule for Arkansas and what it means in terms of the confidence Cal has in this roster. But as we've talked about as well, it's going to be a situation where Arkansas is not surprised talent-wise in a way that maybe it felt like this team, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like they kind of got slapped in the face when SEC play arrived, right? They had that Michigan game. They played Baylor early on in the non-con a year ago, but because of the confidence Cal has in this team, it's no secret. They've scheduled just mightily in the non-conference, and it's going to be you hope it plays out as the team that's battle tested and ready for what can only be described as a gauntlet throughout SEC play. This team will have seen top level competition and then some by the time the conference play rolls around.
Yeah, I agree. You remember that Michigan game was really the only quality win in
Yeah.
non-conference, and he didn't load up on a bunch of tough opponents. You were just coming off a win against a not very good Miami team. It was a road game in the ACC SEC talent, so you had that little feather in the cap at the time. But you finished out the month with the low Division One cupcake blowout
Mhm.
wins, and so you really weren't ready for the SEC, in my opinion. So I do think the stepping stones make more sense, especially if you have confidence in what you've built,
Yeah.
and especially if you remember how you started league play. There are no guarantees. I mean, attrition could rear its ugly head again, and then all the things we're talking about now that are based on a healthy team are out the window. And no game looks manageable. That could happen. Uh, you know, Arkansas, had certain individual players. When you looked at some of the newcomers last year, that it took them a while to acclimate. This could be the same. You're still bringing in some freshmen,
Mhm.
regardless of how talented they are. So there are no guarantees, but I do think Jacob, that Arkansas is a final weekend caliber roster when I look at it on paper. If they stay healthy, if they're not just atrocious shooting from three, I think 3-point shooting is a big question mark. And they've got the kind of schedule that if they get things going and they don't have bad patches or just a fall miserably out of the gates in SEC play, pick up their share of the wins against those tough non-con opponents, they can have the kind of record that gives them a top 1, 2, or 3 seed by the end of the season. And that's really what helps you navigate and get to the final weekend. You can't do that with losing records in league play. I just think that Calipari, he can't control everything, but I think he understands what he's assembled, and I think he knows what the assignment is. And he certainly hasn't been bashful in his non-con scheduling because he knew that the SEC schedule, which is out of his control, was going to be tough. No matter how manageable it might be to the rest of us looking at it, it's going to be tough game in and game out.
It reminds me last year. Now, please understand, I'm not saying Arkansas is going to be a team of the caliber that Auburn was a year ago. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But it reminds me when we were talking about, tournament and seeding and all that fun stuff was arriving. Do you remember the way Auburn was just a metrics monster from the standpoint
Yeah,
that I think it was they had 21 quad one games and won
yeah,
16 of them or something crazy like
yeah.
that. Arkansas is going to be in a position. I'm not suggesting they'll be number one the whole season like Auburn was a year ago. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But with the way this team is set up to be tested, we're going to see a possibility for something like that with just time after time after time, these monster matchups popping up. Regardless, exciting. We have an SEC slate in front of us finally. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll cover a little bit of class of 2026 recruiting. First, quick break and a message from our sponsors. Back here on the Hog Hoops Report, Kevin McPherson and Jacob Morris with you. Kevin, transitioning to a bit of recruiting news here. Arkansas obviously active in the class of 2026, or in the class of 2026, rather. Abdu Torre, a guy that Arkansas is looking at a lot. We should be learning visit news on him, as we will with a bunch of other targets in the class of 2026. Regardless, the guy Arkansas wants, the guy Arkansas really would like to add to the class as a whole.
6'5", 6'6" wing at a Notre Dame high school in Connecticut. Hey, look, he's been on Arkansas's campus last October.
Mm-hmm.
He was in on an unofficial visit, attended the Arkansas LSU football game. The staff has prioritized him in courtside for just about every opportunity they can during live eval opportunities through the spring and summer. I reported a couple of weeks ago that he was interested in coming back to Arkansas as soon as possible for an official visit. He confirmed with me, I think on Thursday of this week, that he in fact will be taking an official visit to Arkansas and would announce the dates for that today over the weekend. Then I had a source tell me, well, they're still ironing out and
Yeah.
finalizing the date. So that's a pretty quick turnaround, Thursday to Sunday or Friday to Sunday. It's been fairly recently when he told me this. So we'll see if it actually gets announced. They haven't seen it at the time that we came on to do this, but it could be any day. And certainly this lines up what I've been hearing for weeks, that he does intend to come back for a visit. Arkansas could be in great shape here, but an explosive, athletic, big motor player, top 25 rated in the composite rankings, number 23, a 5-star. Back, 30 minutes away from the UConn campus, Danny Hurley recruiting him. Some other high majors, obviously, in the mix. Even some West Coast schools he's
Mm-hmm.
interested in. But Arkansas's in great shape here. Well, it's probably too soon. Let's pump the brakes on talking Hogs are leaders and Calipari leads right now. But they're not. If they're not in the lead, they're right there. So the next order of business is getting them on campus, and so we're looking. We're keeping our eyes open now for him to put out his visit date to Arkansas.
As of now, Kevin and I are chatting about 4 p.m. Central, so don't come after us if we get a visit list coming up here a little bit later. But I was gonna ask you, obviously, we're not gonna talk leader, crystal ball, all the above. But obviously, when you hear Connecticut, you think Hurley. Got to go in and pull him out of Danny Hurley's backyard. That's a heck of a challenge, but something that Cal has done before in terms of finding some of those Northeast guys and getting it done on the recruiting trail there.
Yeah, and if you look at you talk about the East, the Midwest, however you
Yeah.
want to look at it, Detroit, uh, then to IMG Academy for Darius Acuff Jr., more Midwest, but kind of
Mhm.
going in that direction. Pittsburgh, his stomping grounds, with Malik Thomas. Calipari recruits all over the country. It doesn't matter what state or region it is. If it's a player he thinks can help, but he's had a lot of success in the East as well. And Abdu Torre is a guy, when I really started paying attention to the players in 2026 that Calipari has prioritized. There's just not very many of these that are Johnny come lately, get on it in on them late.
Yeah.
Again, this guy visited in October. Arkansas has been pursuing him for a while. Chuck Martin, assistant coach on the staff, has kind of been in the lead, the lead man on point here in this recruitment. And so when you look at the guys at the top of Arkansas's big board for that class, most of them are long-term recruiting
Mhm.
courtships. It's not like the portal where it moves fast and furious. Yes, NIL plays a part of it, but and it's not to say that Arkansas doesn't get in on players a little later, but for the most part, the guys they've targeted and prioritized, including Torre, are guys they've been in on for over a year. And I think that goes a long way too towards adding to what Calipari's formula is in success in recruiting. Is that this isn't his first rodeo. And so again, I always give him the advantage. If you get a guy on campus, advantage Calipari. Doesn't mean he's going to get them all and win them all just because he
Mhm.
got them on campus, but it increases. You'd say that about any school. If we can get him in on a
Yeah.
visit, it increases our chances. With him, it's almost it's exponentially in favor of him, in my opinion. So this seems to be destined to happen with Torre, because the young man had told me, yeah, I'm coming. Again, I've got other sources that are saying, yeah, we're just finalizing the date. So
Mhm.
we'll see what comes of that and some others.
Yeah, it brings to mind what we always hear in terms of relationship building, right? When you go back that far, it's not a hot take. It helps in terms of recruiting, and that seems to be what Cal has put together here in the class of 2026. So it'll be fascinating to watch Tori's not commitment, recruitment, we'll say. It's a long way to go before we get to commitment process, but
That's right.
regardless, something to follow. Let's hit one more quick break. When we return, we'll talk a little Pro Hogs action, the NBA opening night slate getting released, and some Pro Hogs featured there. But first, a quick break and a message from our sponsors. Back and wrapping up shop on the Hog Hoops Report. That is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris. Kevin, we are through with Summer League. We are a couple of months away from the NBA season getting underway, but we got the Christmas schedule. We got the opening night schedule. Some exciting, the NBA moving to NBC. Got a little bit of the throwback music. You seen the advertisements, all the above,
Yeah.
getting bringing back the nostalgia factor a little bit. But a couple Pro Hogs going to be featured opening night. Exciting to always to see Pro Hogs there, but going to be front and center from the first night and ready from the jump for the NBA.
A couple of Pro Hogs times two, Jake, and we're going to have
Yeah,
four. We should have four. You got two games. That's how the NBA does it. Late October, the opening night, there's usually two games, and then everything, the floodgates open the next day. But you've got the Oklahoma City Thunder, the defending NBA champions coming into the season, hosting the Houston Rockets, who were the 2 seed coming out of the Western Conference last year. So you got multiple storylines there, right? You got Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams on banner night,
yeah,
hosting the Houston Rockets with Kevin Durant, who was traded to
yeah,
Houston from Phoenix, who played, couldn't get it done in Oklahoma City, right?
yeah.
He got to a title series and didn't win it. So a lot of storylines there. That's what I assume will be the first game of a double header because the second and final game of the night on opening night will be the Golden State Warriors and Los Angeles Lakers. That's Moses Moody, who's an NBA champion in his own right from the 21-22 season, and Lakers rookie Adu Thero, who we know did not play in summer league. And the idea was, the knee that kept him out, precautionary, and that he should be ready for training camp, fall training camp leading into the regular season. So there'll be a preseason prior to that where in theory we'll see Thero in preseason as a lead up to that regular season game. But assuming he's healthy and ready to go, and everybody else is ready to play, you got four Pro Hogs on opening night. I always say the Pro Hog brand is strong. We just
Hmm.
wrapped up another title run for Pro Hogs, right? You look, and I've lost count,
Yeah.
five Pro Hogs in the last five NBA seasons have NBA titles. And you had a sixth, Daniel Gafford, that played in one. And now you open a season, what do they say? The spoils go to the victor. Your first night, the opening night billing usually goes to the teams that the fans care about the most, or the ones that are, either already a hot. I mean, the Lakers haven't done anything recently, but it's the Lakers, right? It's the
Yeah.
brand. But Oklahoma City is a rare projected repeat. Like they're the odds-on favorite to repeat. You don't often see that coming into the next season. Sometimes you do, but they've had one of the best NBA seasons ever last year. One of those all-time great seasons that culminated with
Hmm.
the title. So you understand why the small market team's been put front and center, showcasing the league on opening night.
Yeah, and I'm glad you noted it. It's a little bit cruel having KD in the building for that, huh? They're gonna be raising a banner, and he's got to be there to watch that. But it's great for obviously the Pro Hogs getting to experience that. And opening night's fun. It's all eyes on those games, and it'll be a couple really good games. Man, I'm fascinated to see what we get from Adu Hero, just in terms of it's Rob
Hmm.
Palenka talked about. We value this guy's athleticism. We value we think he can do on the defensive side of the ball, and then you and I have talked before with how free agency went for the Lakers. I mean, there is a spot for Adu. We don't know how big, we don't know how large it would be in the rotation, but depending on his development, there's a chance for him to get minutes. It's going to be fun to watch, but always good to see the Pro Hogs get some opportunities. And opening night, four of them. That'll be a lot of fun. But that's all the time we have on this week's Hog Hoops Report. That is Kevin McPherson. I am Jacob Morris. We'll be back to talk to you next week. More Picture Show coming up on the other side of the break.